Beltone Hearing Aid Center presents The Drive.
Ready?
The Drive.
Elmore deep, left side three is good! From 30 feet, John Elmore!
The Drive with Paul Swann.
Welcome into the Wednesday, September 26th edition. Your drive begins now here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. Coming up this hour, it's basketball time. That's right, basketball practice beginning today at Marshall. Got a chance to check out a little bit of the women and definitely got a few minutes of the men. So we'll talk about that this hour. You're going to hear from Marshall basketball coach Dan D'Antoni. John Elmore as well, and we get a little bit from Rondale Watson for today. I'm going to hold back a couple of things for tomorrow as well because we got so much. It was fun today getting back to basketball. If you know how college athletics works, sometimes you just don't have that much openness, and you can just roll into Marshall basketball practice and watch. I mean, a lot of people were doing that today, so they definitely got an idea of what the team's going to look like, at least kind of get a feel for what practice is going to be all about this year, and I'm excited for Marshall basketball. You should be as well. There's some big expectations. We'll hear from a couple of the players, and we'll hear from Dan a little bit later on. Plus, Tony Kemper. I got a chance to catch up with him. We're going to talk to him later on in the program as well. As I mentioned, women's basketball practice began today. I don't know about you, but if intensity is going to win games alone, I like my chances with Tony Kemper. Now, I'm not saying this was a bad intensity. I'm just saying Coach was not just taking it easy. He was out there instructing, making sure that the energy was good with the team today, and it felt like it was a good practice just from what I saw before I caught up with him. So that's what's coming up this hour. And, of course, your phone calls at 877-420-TALK, 877-420-8255. I do want to remind you we are presented by Beltone Hearing Aid Center right here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. So I think the news today from the football side of things is that Marshall senior linebacker Chase Hancock, he is a Campbell Trophy semifinalist. So congratulations to him. Got a chance to catch up with him yesterday. If you missed any of that, you can go back on the podcast. All you have to do is find us on Apple Podcasts. We're on Stitcher Radio. Tune in. You can also get us on Overcast if you've got that podcasting app. That's a great app to have. Also on Google Play. So wherever you get your podcast, you can go back and listen to a little bit of that yesterday. And I will post maybe a little bit of that audio on Twitter this evening. So I'll give you a chance to hear some of that. And all you have to do is follow me on Twitter at Paul Swann. I've got a sample of John Elmore already up there. So follow me on Twitter. From time to time, I'm going to drop a few sound bites here or there. Maybe something you'll hear later on the show. Maybe something you might not hear on the show. So make sure you're following me on Twitter for some extra bonus content. So it's a good day. If you haven't been over to the arena yet, first of all, they had the scoreboard fired up. Why? Because, well, why not? Scoreboard looked good. If you are a fan of new shiny things, the scoreboard looked really good. Kind of felt nice to have the Henderson Center feel like a basketball arena a little bit more. Remember, initially, the Henderson Center had a scoreboard hung over the court, went away from that. Now that thing is back. It's definitely not a light bright. That thing looked really nice. So if you get a chance to go out to Marshall basketball practice, you haven't had a chance to go over to the Henderson Center just yet. That's definitely one of the highlights. And, of course, the team looked really loose. There should be a lot of pressure on this team, but there's not. They know what the expectations are. They actually cherish the fact that people are looking at them now as a target. Instead of them being the hunters, they are the hunted, and with that comes a lot of expectation. So I know the team really excited, and we're going to get into that here in a few minutes, starting off with Marshall basketball coach Dan D'Antoni. We take phone calls on the program at 877-420-TALK, 877-420-8255. Jack is checking in from Milton. He wants to talk a little bit about Western Kentucky. He's on the drive here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. What's up, Jack?
How you doing, Paul?
I'm good.
Paul, I want to bring up something, and this is not a criticism of Doc Holliday, but I listened to him on TV yesterday, and he made a statement that Western Kentucky is tough, and they're one of our best teams in the conference. Well, really, Paul, they're one of the worst teams in the conference. They're not one of the best. They're 1-3. They got beat by a Maine team that emphasizes hockey. If you ever see Maine Stadium, it's like a high school stadium. It seats about 3,000 or 4,000, and I wish coaches wouldn't do that. People aren't stupid. I mean, they're 1-3. Why would he make a statement like they're one of the best in the conference and they're a tough team? They're not. They're definitely not, because you don't lose to Maine, and you're 1-3. So what do you got to say about that? I just want the truth. I don't like this blowing teams up and like people are not very smart.
Well, I don't think he's treating everyone like they're dumb. I think he's being respectful, because in years past it's been a competitive series. Western Kentucky, for the most part, has owned Marshall over the last few years, so he's being respectful of that. Plus, this isn't the WWE where I can come out and just say Western Kentucky is horrible, that they got beat by a team they shouldn't have, and whatever else I can come up with here on the spot. He's just not going to do that, because he's not going to be disrespectful. He is going to, every team on this schedule, he's going to come out, talk about the positives, what they have to offer. And Western Kentucky has gotten a little bit better. I'm not going to say that they're the best team in Conference USA. I'm not going to say they're the worst team either.
Yeah.
But
I don't mean, Paul, I don't mean to come out and say what you're saying. I didn't mean that. What I mean is say, just come out and say, Western Kentucky plays us tough, even though the record's not all that good, but they always play us tough. But then come out and say stuff that ain't true. I don't care if it's him or any other coach. Tell it like it is. I don't mean come out and criticize Western Kentucky, because anybody can beat you. I mean, Maine beat them, which shocked me, and that showed me they're not very good. I don't know what you think of them, but you don't lose to a Maine team in the Yankee, whatever conference they're in, and especially they lost to them at home, didn't they?
They lost to, well, it didn't matter where they lost to them at home or not. You don't lose to a team like that. I agree with that statement, and I would make that statement. You don't lose to a team like that. But I don't think it's a good look on Doc Holliday to come out and say anything about that team in a negative light, because, one, Doc Holliday starts trashing my team or says something like, yeah, you know what, they're not very good. They lost to a Maine team they shouldn't have. They're not very good. The next day, I'm putting that up in the locker room. Doc Holliday doesn't think you're very good. Anything he says is out of line, I'm going to blow that up. I'm going to hype that up. I'm going to amplify that. And I'm going to make sure my players know that Doc Holliday is talking trash about me, and he knows better than that. He's not going to do that.
Yeah, Paul, I don't think you're getting what I'm saying. I don't mean trash Western Kentucky.
But what I'm saying though is, if he comes out and says they're not a very good team,
I don't even do that, Paul. You're not getting it.
Okay.
I'm just saying they play us tough. And let it go with that. They play us tough, and and they're in our league. They play us tough, and end it with that. But don't go off and saying they're a good team when they're not, and don't say that they're one of the best in the conference, which they're not. That's two things right there. Just say, hey, they give us a good game. It's a good rivalry, and let it go with that. But don't blow smoke. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, let me ask you this, Jack. Let me ask you this. Have you broke down the film? Have you watched the film of Western Kentucky?
I watched the main game on whatever it is on Sunday, and I tell you what, they don't look very good at all.
Okay, so you base that on the main game. Did you watch their game against Wisconsin?
They got drubbed by Wisconsin. They got beat by Maine. Who was the other team they played?
They beat Ball State 28-20. They lost to Louisville 20-17. I mean, some of the players came out and said that they thought they should have beat Louisville, and they thought that they were a good team. I mean, I get what you're saying. You don't want Doc Holliday to hype them up,
but don't bash. And I don't want you to bash him either. No, you don't do that. I'm not that stupid. You don't put bulletin board material up. I'm not saying it. But I'm saying, hey, they're a good rivalry, and they always play stuff. Let it go at that, because people see the record. They see who to beat them. It's not like we don't know what's going on. That's all I'm saying.
I think Doc's just being respectful.
I think we're going to beat them like a drum. To be honest with you, I think we're not that much better than them. I really do. Well, I don't think it's going to be a close game at all.
I hope you're right. It makes a better night for me. I hope you're right, but I think Doc is being respectful. I mean, he's got a history with Western Kentucky. He's being respectful.
Well, good. Well, let's go hard, and I just want to put my 4 cents worth in, and you have a good evening. I always enjoy talking to you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Jack. You can put in 4 cents.
Okay,
you can put in a
buddy.
nickel, quarter. That's fine. Whatever you want. No, I get what you're saying, but I think anything that Doc says is going to be perceived differently. If he would say anything that would even indicate that they're not that good, I mean, he might acknowledge, hey, they've had some troubles. He might acknowledge the fact that the season hasn't gone the way they've wanted to, but just to ignore the fact that they've got some good players. I mean, I'm going to use a Bob Pruitt saying, they got scholarships too. Those kids get scholarships too, and I get that completely. But Jack's just not wanting Doc to overhype Western Kentucky. I hope he's right. If Western Kentucky comes out and plays the Herd tough and then maybe finds a way to beat the Herd, then all of a sudden you're sitting there thinking, okay, maybe they're a better team than we thought, or you flip that and think, maybe Marshall's not as good as a team we thought. That'll be resolved on Saturday. We're going to talk basketball when we come back from break. We've got Dan D'Antoni. Later on, we're going to hear from John Elmore, Rondale Watson as well. And I've got a conversation with Tony Kemper. That's all still to come on this edition of The Drive, presented by Beltone Hearing Aid Center on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Buckle up. Paul Swann has the wheel on The Drive, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back to the Wednesday edition. Your Drive is on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. I've got Dan D'Antoni. That means it's basketball time. That's right. Herd Hoops trying to make another run to a Conference USA championship and get back into the NCAA tournament. Admit it, most fun you've had in a long time following the Herd, especially during the conference tournament, getting into the tournament itself, the NCAA tournament, and getting a couple of games in. Didn't go the way they wanted to. They would like to advance further. That seems to be the goal. We'll hear a little bit more on that from John Elmore later on. But I've got Dan D'Antoni. And first of all, when talking to the media this afternoon, one of the questions that came up to Dan was the fact that Marshall is expected to do it again. Here's Dan's thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, what does it say? They said coaches always have a posse chasing them. We got, excuse me for the fly, even they're joining up, but they got off the horses at the end of this past season, but starting today, I'm sure they're mounting the horses again, the posse's chasing, so we got to start trying to be as good as we can be.
If you like Westerns, you know what that meant. I like Westerns, so I knew what that meant. If you don't know what Westerns are, or you've never watched one, you've never seen a posse, then that was lost on you. But a posse is a group of people coming after you. That's all you need to know. So the question to Dan was that with all of that coming up, the process starts today. Here's his response to that.
Well, it is a process, and every year's a new year. You don't rely on what we did last year other than we've enjoyed it. But now that's over, and you're trying to pursue our ultimate goal, which is to win the NCAA title. Now, where that goes, I have no idea. You know, you got to be lucky. You got to have people don't get hurt. People got to excel at what they do. Got to play the right games the right time. Don't know how good the other teams were going to play. There's a lot of variables, but I think what we can promise is an exciting team, one that's competitive, very competitive, and fun to watch. We're going to enjoy watching them, and they're going to represent Marshall well.
So a lot of optimism from the head coach. Now, with all the success Marshall has had, there's a lot of buzz for Marshall basketball. They're getting some pub, some press, preseason notoriety. There's a lot going on. The visibility is starting to pick up for Marshall basketball. And Dan was asked if that visibility helps Marshall.
No question. We got a kid from Mesa that, basically saw it. Tavian signed right after we played. And there's a lot of people know Marshall, who we are. We got ranked by Street and Smith or Smith and Street, whichever way it goes. And, good things are happening. We just got to keep them going. But, like I said, last year is no guarantee for this year. And we have to go out and earn our stripes again.
And keeping it pretty positive. Okay, we did good last year. We got to go out. We got to do it again. They're not just going to hand this thing to him. So he's keeping it pretty positive. And with that, they're not going to hand him the conference trophy again. It's not just Marshall's by default. He's got to go out there and earn it. And with that success, Dan was asked, hey, are you driving this team a little harder now, knowing that success is there?
Well, I don't think we drive harder. I think they're more excited. They'll drive themselves. Coaches, if we have a fault, we probably drive them in the ground. So their excitement, their enthusiasm for feeling that success and having the confidence, knowing they have come to that level. We have leaders on this team that can demonstrate that and feel it for the young guys. I think it'll be a benefit. You never know till you see the process. We did get to see them this summer, which helped. They got together this summer. I could probably say I can say realistic. We're more athletic and we're taller. Now how that translates into wins and losses and success of a season, we'll have to wait and see.
That's a great evaluation. Hey, Marshall basketball in a nutshell, more athletic and taller. One guy who is definitely taller than a few of us, and he's very athletic, is John Elmore. Elmore's getting a lot of attention. He's a guy who's going to drive this team. He's the leader of this team. If not one of the leaders, the leader as far as the guys on the court. Earned his position. He's got that respect. The guys look up to him. He goes out there, works really hard, but he's still got a long ways to go. He knows that. He didn't depart Marshall for an attempt to get into the NBA after the camp process, the evaluation. So he came back. He knows he's got some stuff to work on, and we're going to hear from him here a little bit later on. But Dan was asked, hey, what is John Elmore's upside?
John's one of the best players in the country, and having him back, obviously is a good thing. Plus, he's a great leader, great representative of the university, going to be a great alumni, and a good family. So, having him back stabilizes a lot of things, gives the chance for our young guys to be tutored and to learn under him. And, I have great expectations for John and really just looking forward to coaching him again.
And that's one thing that I think has really made it fun for Coach Dan D'Antoni is he's got a guy like Elmore to coach. You come back, you've got guys that you like to work with, you like to coach. John is one of those guys. I'm sure any coach in Conference USA would chomp at the bit to have him on the team. And speaking of chomping at the bit, that was one of the questions that was asked of Dan D'Antoni. Are you chomping at the bit for this day? Now, let me preface this by saying, if you know Dan D'Antoni, he's chomping at the bit for this day, yesterday, tomorrow. He'll be home tonight chomping at the bit to go at it again. Yeah, he's chomping at the bit, but here's his response just for clarity.
I chomp at the bit to play basketball every day. That's why I'm doing the job. I don't do this job other than I love basketball and I'm at a place I feel like it's my home. So, I chomp. When I quit chomping at the bit, I need to give this up and give it to somebody else. So, right now, I look forward to it. It's makes my day. I get up, I think about it. I think about it when I go to bed. Makes for a big, boring guy for my wife. But she has accepted me, so it's all good.
Luckily for him, he can come home. He said something that I didn't play for you, that with all his visibility, that she now knows who he is. So he's having a good time with this. Now, he was asked about some of the new guys fitting in, and I'm sure you're going to read a little bit more about this tomorrow in the Herald-Dispatch. Rick McCann was asking this question, so he's got a story in mind, I'm sure. But the question was, how are the new guys fitting in? And here's his rather long answer.
Well, a lot of people didn't think Iron could fit in the style, but if you come watch his practice, you'll see that he can. He's got to get his wind a little stronger. He's got to be able to get, if 1 or 2, 3 plays, he's as quick or as explosive as anybody we have. He winds down a little faster than everybody else, and that's going to be a process of him getting used to 5 days practices last year he kind of pulled himself in and out whenever he wanted to. this year he's going to be thrust in there and expected to maintain it. Dropped about 30 pounds. He's, I could see him drop another 50, and maybe it's not going to be today or tomorrow, but as he gets through his time here, I'm expecting him to about 300 pounds, and he's explosive. 2 kids from Ohio, explosive. They're athletic, they're explosive. They're going to provide a lot of excitement. Jeremy Dillon out of Mingo, a lot better than I thought he was. A lot better, and he's going to be a major contributor here before he leaves this program too. So we also brought in the kid from Split, and he's ahead of Penova and those guys as a first-year guy here. So, and I'm also surprised how fast he's caught on, how much better he's gotten within a short period of time. So, got good walk-ons. Our walk-ons are strong, and DeAndre's playing well, and could help out. Christian is playing well for our senior for us, and of course CJ and Rondale and Jared and Jansen and George, all those guys have gotten better. And the thing now is, can I get them all in the game, keep them happy? I'm going to have to hire a clown every game, keep them happy, I guess. But hopefully they'll buy into the team concept and understand that. And I tell them, a coach can only play so many. I only have so many. I'm not going to be able to please everybody to the extent that they may want to be pleased. They have to buy into the team concept, understand we're playing for Marshall. They come first, and we'll take it from there.
All right, Dan D'Antoni is hiring a clown. You're going to see a clown roaming the sidelines soon at Marshall basketball games to keep these kids happy. Hey, that's a good thing, though, right? You got a lot of kids who can go out and play. You've got depth. So the task here is get all my talent out there at the same time. Keep them happy because I've got depth now. It's not a situation where I've got 5 guys, maybe a 6th guy, and everybody else, you'll get in as if I can get you in. Now it's, all right, I got a lot of guys. I got to get them in. I got to keep them happy because I got to play these guys and I got to play these guys. And that's a good thing to have. You want depth. You want a system where you've got guys fighting to get into the game. You've got guys who probably should be starting that are not. That's a good sign that the coach has got this basketball program definitely at a point now where somebody goes down, you got somebody who can step right in. Or the fact that, all right, somebody needs a breather, you bring someone else in, you're not going to miss a step. That's what you're looking for is depth. When we come back from break, we're going to hear from John Elmore, a little bit from Rondale Watson later on as well. I've got a quick conversation with the women's basketball coach, Tony Kemper. He was practicing with his squad earlier in the day as well, so I'm going to talk to him, just kind of get his impressions on the first day. That's all when we continue with this edition of The Drive, presented by Beltone Hearing Aid Center on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
.com. You're listening to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back to the Wednesday edition, The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930, presented by Beltone Hearing Aid Center. We've got more from basketball today. Start of practice at Marshall University. Still to come, you're going to hear from Tony Kemper, Marshall's women's basketball coach. But up next, I've got a little bit from John Elmore. Same question to John as Dan was asked earlier about expectations. They are high, and here's his response to that.
We've got huge expectations. I know we're starting to get a little bit of a national attention. I've seen us on some preseason lists, but I was talking to Coach D'Antoni. He was like, we're going to take it one game at a time. We're going to ignore all the outside noise, and we're going to do our own thing. So we had a great finish last year. Wish to have gone a few more games in that tournament, but going into this year, that's our goal. Talk to Coach Dan, you talk to our teammates. We want to be on that stage in April holding up that trophy, winning the national championship. Everybody's like, well, you're a mid-major. That's not possible. But that's our goal going into the year. We can see ourselves doing that, so that's our focus from day one.
That's the right attitude. Doesn't matter you're mid-major. The attitude is we're going to win the national championship. We're going to go win it all. I don't want a team that's happy with, hey, we won the Conference USA Championship. Oh, that's great. Hey, we got into the NCAA tournament. That's great. No. I want a team that's expectations are we're going to win it all. Are they going to win it all? I'm not going to say no, but they have a lot of expectations. So I'm down with that. Also, John was asked about the visibility this team has been getting. Of course, the magazine, preseason consideration, a lot of buzz about Herd basketball. So a lot more people now know about Marshall basketball and are getting on board with the Thundering Herd. John was asked, how much does that visibility help?
It's been huge. Marshall basketball, I mean, when I first got here, there started to get that buzz around Marshall with Coach D'Antoni and changing how things were going here. But then each year, I think it was 11 games, 17 games, 21 games, 25 games in the win column. So we're going to try to up that number again, maybe get up to 30. That's our goal. And keep heading in the right direction because, I mean, Marshall is the basketball culture is growing around here, and we want to keep improving that.
So the visibility does help the team, but there's a lot of pressure on this team as well because with the expectations, you got to go win it again now, right? That's the thing. You've done it. You've won it. Now you got to go do it again. And John was asked about that. Is there more pressure now to go out and do these things?
Not at all. We enjoy the attention. We enjoy the spotlight. I know going in this year we're going to have a little bit of a target on our back. Kind of the past couple of years we've always been the one chasing those people with the targets. But we're going to go in focused. I like our team. I like the new guys. I think we've got some pretty good guards and some pretty good wings and bigs. So it's all about seeing how we mesh early on and just developing that chemistry and seeing how far we can take this thing.
One thing I think that helped this team as well is the fact that they got to get together a little earlier than usual, and they had an opportunity to take a trip to the Bahamas. Who would pass that up, right? Not John Elmore. So he was asked, hey, how did that Bahamas trip help this team?
Hanging out in the Bahamas, all-inclusive vacation, wasn't a bad week to spend, but just playing those 3 games, getting to know the guys, hanging out off the court, and then 3 games on the court, we showed glimpses of being really good, but then we showed some weaknesses. So it's just a matter of hammering those out, limiting those weaknesses, and just keep improving as the year goes on.
Speaking of improving, one of the things that was asked of John was, what do you want to get better at?
Just every game, being more consistent. I think I had a little bit of drop-off at times last year, whether it was shooting the ball, finishing, even though one game I shot bad free throws. So it's just a matter of toning everything up as we go along. I just want to improve my overall game, but do whatever I can at the end of the day to make the team better. So whatever it takes to get the W in that column and keep improving is what I'm here for.
So that's John Elmore. Also had a chance to catch up with Rondale Watson today, and the same question that was being asked to everyone else as far as what are the expectations for you? They are high.
We're expecting a lot out of these guys, and I think everyone knows that. But we're just trying to, come here, and we know it's not going to be easy. We have to earn it like we did last year, and we're just trying to just teach the young guys about how we like to play and how intense it is, how quick it is, and Coach always emphasizes it too to the young guys that it's tough, and it's going to be a battle and it's going to be a fight every day, but I think they're willing to learn, and we'll be ready for it.
One thing that Coach D'Antoni talked about earlier was this team was taller and more athletic. So Rondale was asked about the fact that this team is more athletic, right? Do you agree with that?
I agree. I think the young guys coming in, I think they brought a little bit more excitement, and it'll be a lot of more dunks and stuff this year. But we just want to play fast and quick like we always do and get up and down the court.
Chicks dig the dunk. Just so you know, chicks dig the dunk. Now, one of the questions asked to Rondale was, with all of the success, how much does that success make you want to do it again? Here's his response to that question.
Well, pretty much it was quite unexpected, the run we had. I mean, we all believed in it, but I think everyone in our conference kind of didn't. But it's exciting for us, like, to be able to say we're champions is something that we can always remember. So to be able to repeat that and have a good year as we did last year, it'd be even more something we always remember and we'll always cherish.
So that's Rondale Watson. When we come back from break, I had a chance to catch up with Tony Kemper, Marshall's women's basketball coach, and they're starting their practice today as well. I came into the Henderson Center, and Coach Kemper was very intense. Not in a bad way, but still, he's just not sitting on the sideline. Okay. No, he's into this. He's ready to go. Day one, he's ready to go. The players were as well. We're going to hear from him when we come back from break. You're listening to The Drive, presented by Beltone Hearing Aid Center on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Now, back to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back to the Wednesday, September 26th edition. I'm your host, Paul Swann. We are presented today by Beltone Hearing Aid Center. Basketball is back. Practice has begun. The men earlier this afternoon, and before that, the ladies got a chance to go at it, and Tony Kemper was already in prime form. I thought the practice looked good for the ladies today. And one of my questions to him as I start off with this interview is the fact that it looked like it was Christmas for you, and we'll go from there.
It is. It's a good day, and I like where our team's at. I think we're in good position, conditioning wise and stuff, to kind of push through things, and we've got good spirit right now, which everybody does. It's kind of like you said, it's kind of like Christmas Day today, but I feel like, our leadership is stepping up, and the energy level is stepping up, and, we do have 3 seniors that have played a lot of minutes for us, and they have, all 3 of those were part of our WNIT team a couple of years ago, so they've been part of, one of the most successful runs that this program's had in women's basketball, and we've got to go back to doing some of the stuff that group did a couple years ago.
So with the first day of practice, is it a slow start, or was everyone just ready to go at it?
Yeah, I think we were ready to go. I think our spirit was pretty good. You do practice with I practice with a little more intensity today, so that's a little bit of a change for them. But they responded very, very well. We are a little bit banged up, that has all happened in the last couple days, and it seems like it's all just little nagging stuff, but that did kind of impact us down at the end there. We didn't really have anybody healthy, so we had to kind of improvise down the stretch, but it was a good day overall.
I know it's the first day, but what stood out to you during this practice?
I think we've got a smart team. They understand the system that we're trying to run, and they understand what we're trying to do, and I think over time we ought to think the game really, really well, and right now we do that pretty well when we're fresh. We need to learn to do it better when we get a little tired, but I think that stands out as our ability to be self-coached a little bit. We should be good at that. They should understand they're old. They've started a lot of games. They've played in a lot of games. Some of them are in a lot bigger role now than what they used to be in. But there's experience there that should help me.
With that experience, you've got depth, because for the last few years you might think of Marshall women's basketball. You have to start thinking about Shayna Gore, but this is not just Shayna Gore and 4 other players you surround her with.
No, I think that's right. I think that, Shayna needs to have a really good year for us if we're going to be as good as we can be. But, Taylor Porter coming back. Taylor Porter's got a lot of guts. She's got a lot of moxie. And she plays with an edge, and we kind of missed that at times last year. She has really good leadership capabilities. She's kind of a brawler. That's kind of who she is. She's back. Kadeja Brooks being back. We really missed her last year. Very smart basketball player. She provides some scoring punch. Just kind of always around the ball. She's not very big. She just has a knack for getting things done. We're gonna here pretty soon. We'll have Ashley all the way back off of a knee injury, and throughout her career, I think if we can add consistency to what she does, when she's good, she's very, very productive. If we can add consistency to that, she'll be productive every night. So, and a lot of those players weren't there last year. 3 of those that I just went through didn't play really towards the end of the year. So there's some punch that's back there to build around Shayna, and Taylor Pearson's coming around. I like our newcomers, Lorelei Roper, Princess Clemens, junior college player, Kia Sills from over in Louisville. I think they'll be able to step in, and athletically, I think they'll be able to help us.
You have some new pieces to your staff as well. So with the first day of practice, how did everything go, and how did it flow having some new components?
I think it went pretty well, and we all evolve, our team will evolve, and we'll be a little bit better tomorrow as a staff than we were today, but we get along really well. It's important to me to have good people. They're really good people, and we are kind of we're doing a couple things new, so we're all kind of learning some new drills and different things like that, and they're kind of learning new roles from where they were, but I really like our staff, and they work hard for Marshall and our student athletes.
And with that, the new drills, everything's new. It felt like just watching a few minutes of practice that the intensity was definitely up. I know you're intense, but it felt like there was a really positive response from everyone on this court today.
Oh, I think that's right. I mean, I don't think I challenged them a couple times. They responded. I think, they're a tougher group. I think that we have to continue to build confidence. I think that for whatever reason, they haven't had a lot go right for them lately. But they're good basketball players, and they're tough kids. So, as long as I keep challenging them and they keep pushing back, we got a chance to do some things that people are going to enjoy.
That's the head coach of the Marshall women's team, Tony Kemper, as the women begin their quest to win a Conference USA championship. I know a lot of pressure on a coach in a year in which, okay, you've got your coaching staff that you want. You've got some players now that are coming in that are players that are totally you. You went after and got them. And so I'm sure there's a lot of expectations on his part to have a better performance this year, and there's a lot of expectations on the part of a lot of people who follow Marshall women's basketball. This should be a better team. Injuries did not help. I think that's a fair criticism of Marshall basketball for the women. Injuries did not help this team whatsoever. So there's a hope that he gets more of his components back, more of his pieces, and you see a better flow. You see a better dynamic because you have enough players to practice and you have enough players to play. That was the problem for women's basketball. A lot of hardship, but you didn't hear them complaining. They just kept playing, and I think you're going to see a big year from Shayna Gore. You have to. I was talking to a couple people on the sidelines earlier, and we were joking around. Is Shayna Gore the John Elmore of the women's team? And my reply was, or is John Elmore the Shayna Gore of the men's team? Definitely not going to ask that question to either one of them, but Shayna Gore is, if you're going to use that analysis, she's the John Elmore of that team. That's where she's at stature-wise. She's going to have a big year. She's got to be out there, a leader. She's going to make this team go. And if she doesn't, then I don't know where it's coming from, because she should be at a point now in her career where, okay, she's the leader. She's got to make it happen. She's not the only player out there, but you expect big things from her. She's probably one of the top 3-5 players right now in Conference USA on the women's side. I wouldn't argue that unless I thought I could back that one up. I think she's probably top 3, top 5 right now in Conference USA of players on the women's side. I don't think there's that many players ahead of her. So I'm looking for a big season from her. And, of course, we're going to have more from basketball coming up tomorrow. I'll have a couple of other interviews. And, of course, we'll get back to covering Marshall and Western Kentucky as we're a few days away from the Thundering Herd making the journey to take on Western Kentucky. That's a team that has given Marshall fits over the years. And until Marshall can start consistently beating them, I think that's going to be a tough challenge for the Herd. A few of the players remember, you've been listening all week, the few that we've talked to about that series, remember that this was the team that a few years ago knocked them off and kept them from having an undefeated season. And that could have been a Marshall team that if they were undefeated, they could have made an argument for Access Bowl. So that one stings a little bit. I'm not saying they would have got the Access Bowl bid, but if you've got an undefeated Marshall football team rolling into Conference USA Championship, winning that, then you got to look at the committee and think, hey, you got to give them some love. They've got to get some consideration. So you remember that. If you're a Marshall football player, you remember a few years ago, if you were on that squad, part of that, hey, these guys ruined our season. Not from the standpoint that we didn't achieve most of what we wanted to, but we could have been undefeated, and this team could have went elsewhere, higher places. So that was kind of the feeling I was getting this week talking to some of these guys. And we'll hear a little bit more from them tomorrow. And, of course, we're going to get you closer and closer to the rest of your weekend. We got a lot to get into. High school football is almost back for this weekend. Basketball, of course, is definitely back. Baseball is wrapping up, starting to get into the postseason. So plenty to talk about tomorrow. We're going to do it all over again right here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. For our producer, Gabriel Sellards, I'm Paul Swann. Thanks for tuning in. Back at it tomorrow here. You're listening to The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930, presented by Beltone Hearing Aid Center.
Huntington, W227BS Huntington, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Huntington Sports Station.